We're talking about communication. How's it changing? Up next on Geek Out SA. Do not attempt to adjust your YouTube video. We control the stream. And welcome back to Geek Out SA. It's Friday and we're having fun.
Howdy,
we have a guest here in studio.
Ooh, real people in live person.
Philip Nelson from Nelco Media.
Wearing
Thanks for coming.
my COVID protection kit.
Yeah.
We just sprayed him in the face with Lysol when he walked in, and he's good to go now.
It's a great breath mint. It's a great breath mint.
Hi.
Do not try that at home, though.
No. Do not
don't do that.
Do not ingest the disinfectant, please.
We have derailed already. We're only 30 seconds into the show, and we're giving bad advice.
But today we're talking about communication. So I was thinking about just like, who do I need? Who can I call that I can discuss about communication with? And I'm not necessarily like talking about communication about between us, but I was thinking I'm talking about like technology and stuff like that. But I was like, I'll ask Phil. He'd know.
Well, even technology stuff can lead to that communication between us that I think that we need to get better at on all kinds of fronts. So I was glad to have Phil come because I know a little bit about stuff, and I've learned some about Zoom and everything with this whole distance learning has kind of thrown the world into this place where we're like, oh, God, we got to figure it out.
You know, it's funny. Everybody panicked when the COVID pandemic hit, but there are people like you who were already tech savvy and doing a show. You had a running start because, you know, it's funny. You could get online in 30 seconds and be doing a Zoom call or go to meeting or a WebEx. It's really, really easy. But the thing, and right now everybody's in panic mode. All the school districts, all the businesses, their salespeople can't travel. You can't go do demos. So it's how do we shift and continue doing business when everybody's working remote? And you saw those growing pains during the first month and a half as servers were coming to a grinding halt because, you know, the technology's been there. This is not new. Yeah. But on this type of scale, it's new because now everyone is using it. It's not just the leading edge, bleeding edge, tech savvy people. It's everybody's using it.
Well, I work for a bank, and for the first month, they were saying, well, you can log in from this time to this time because we need this open bandwidth because we're not set up for it. So we would just go on chunks of time during the day where we'd have to get all of our work done and then log off for the day to give people the rest of the bandwidth. But now they've kind of made it to where, because if you work for a bank and nobody's there at our bank anymore for the call center, they've all gone home. So they have to be able to scale with that. And how do you think they were able to scale that, like people as a whole, how do you think they were able to scale that quickly? Because I think it was pretty quick.
It was
for what it was.
It was lightning fast, but the reason they were able to scale so quickly is because the technology was there. You know, even most Microsoft Office 365. You know, a lot of businesses use that service, but they had never activated Teams. And and because they had the Office 365 licenses and they had this and they had that. It was a matter of just saying, hey, here's how you use Teams. Here's how you schedule your meeting with Teams. And people come together with that. And they already had the back-end infrastructure. If that back-end infrastructure wasn't already in place, it wouldn't have been lightning fast. Yeah. And people are used to webinars, although most of them look like garbage and are very boring. The underlying technology was there and people were vaguely familiar with it, or in some cases like you're very familiar with it because of Geek Out SA. But the thing that now that we've gotten through this, crazy ramp up, where it's going. Not that you want to talk about this yet, but it's very important that video communication looks as close to TV as you can make it.
Right.
You've all been on the Zoom call where someone's sitting in front of a window and they look like they're, in the witness relocation program because they're ghosted out, just a black shape with this blasting light behind them. And during the first 2 months, that's what all the Zoom calls look like. Or it's, Tim the Toolman's next door neighbor where they didn't tilt their laptop forward and their eyes are cut off and they don't really look. But now you're starting to see people that are like, man, I look really bad on that Zoom call. I'm going to put a light here. I'm going to put a lamp on my table. I'm going to go get a little microphone. I'm going to use my earbuds. And so you're starting to see people starting to evolve their remote communications to actually look better.
But I think there's still a huge divide, though, because for my Zoom and everything, I'm still using my laptop that I use to grade and things like that. So it's older technology. The camera's older. He and I are both here trying to run things on our one internet. I know I have students who had to go to the campus and pick up a hotspot just so that they could use, because they didn't have internet accessibility where they were, or it was spotty, or they had a bunch of family on, and the families didn't have 6 laptops, one for each person in the family. So then how do you say, well, I need to have a meeting, okay, but I need to have a meeting at the same time, and I need to so I think that's some of the things that we need to think about
scheduling.
It's really funny because it's the same problem we've been facing in the television side of things for years. So we did this show, I helped with this show with Neil Patrick Harris called Best Time Ever. It was a variety show on NBC. And we did a segment that was live band karaoke, and we were bringing in hidden camera karaoke singers.
Okay.
So they were set up by their families and invited to watch the show, and then it's like, oh, we're going live to Rebecca in San Antonio, Texas, and she's like, what? And then a producer runs out and hands her a mic. But one of the biggest problems was, what is everybody else in the house doing? Because we need that bandwidth. Right. So like the families would be like, make sure your kids are not on Netflix, unplug the Xbox, because the average house, you may have 200 megabits down, but you may only have 10 up.
Well, that's funny because when the kids lived here
5 years ago, when our internet wasn't as great as it is now.
Which is still not great, thanks, Spectrum.
So we had some of our kids back then still in the house, and they were like watching videos on Netflix or going through and playing Xbox videos, like right in the middle of the show, and then that would like really mess with our bandwidth.
They're playing in the yard until 7:05.
Yes.
And it's like, hey guys, let's go watch something on Netflix, and your bandwidth comes to a grinding halt.
Let's go and watch it on a different farm.
Yeah. Let's take 3 Netflix at once instead of just all going to one TV.
Yeah.
But those are some of the things that people are figuring out now. But as we move forward, because no matter what this curve does, we are, and I hate this term. I hate it so much, but the new normal. It's so overused. And it's cliche. But people are going to be working differently.
Yes.
And you see, like, Twitter has announced that, if you work for Twitter, you can work from home if you want to. So instead of everybody having to come into the office, they can work remotely. But, the thing that's going to change is people are going to get more savvy. They're going to make their videos look better. They're going to be looking at affordable, and in cases of enterprise where it's a business communication, they want it to look like TV.
Yeah.
Because, my 96-year-old grandmother is an expert on television, and so is my 11-year-old daughter, and, anybody's kids who can speak and turn on a tablet, we all know what TV looks like.
Yeah.
And, the challenge is going to be, credibility of your message. The better your camera is, the better your audio is, the better your presentation is, the more it looks like TV, the more credibility your message has.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're getting called a lot.
Okay.
You know, a lot of businesses, schools, churches, celebrities, like Tom Green. We're working with him right now. He's starting the
I saw some of the stuff that he's been doing.
2.0. Tom, a lot of people don't realize this. Tom was the first celebrity to do a live show from their house.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Webovision 1.0. And that's what he called it. And now this is Webovision 2.0. But that's what we're doing right now and back in those days, it was a lot more complicated. And Tom had a technical director that was sitting there switching the cameras. And Tom was hosting a show. And would have, even Joe Rogan was a guest on Tom's show.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe was like, oh my gosh, this is the future. I need to do this. And now Joe Rogan has the #1 podcast in the world.
Yeah.
And he gives Tom credit that you gave me the idea to do this. But now, because of Webovision 2.0, and especially living in the Los Angeles area, it's a lot more, risky to just have people coming in your house and things like that.
Yeah.
So he's like, I have to do it all. It's not tech director and somebody to do audio. Tom's hosting the show and switching the show and triggering presets on his PTZs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great that we now live in the world that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah.
No matter.
Well, it's a lot easier than it was.
It is.
Yeah.
I could, you could really teach somebody to do that, the basics,
Mm-hmm.
in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
As long as setting it up may be a little more challenging.
Yeah.
But he's setting it up himself. But it really goes back to one of the big points that because anybody that's watching this show, this is not your average person that doesn't even know how to set up an iPad.
Yeah.
Geek SA, I have a feeling your fan base is a little more savvy. But
Yeah.
Some
I
of
would
them.
think so.
a tough crowd.
The ones on my side are not as savvy. Me and my peeps are not savvy. We
Well, we
just
got a lot
watch
of
them.
people-
That side of the room
Savvy
is savvy. This
We got a lot
side.
of people making comments. Steve Cuneo says, "Hi guys, happy Friday."
Hey,
Happy
Steve.
Friday.
Patrick from Nolan Create says, "Hola, Geek Out SA."
Hey, Patrick.
We also have the start of the heckling from Kurt.
Kurt is a good friend of mine from Kansas, and I expected some heckling from Kurt. So if he brings me some good stuff, feel free to pass it along.
So he said, "I wish there was more Star Wars things on set." And then
We just
Phil
need a
said, "The
couple
new
more."
normal."
Phil said the new
I
normal.
like a good heckler, and Kurt is
It's
one
good.
of the best.
It's
He
good.
heckles like nobody's business.
Yeah.
But back to my point, I think that we're in a time where this transition is everything needs to look like TV if it can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but how hard do you think that that's going to be for the every person? For the very basic person who's just, as an educator, I have watched teachers truly, truly struggle through this distance learning. And there are already, like you said, there were already things in place. There were already things called Loom, which I haven't used, but I know that a lot of teachers use it. Vince taught me how to use OBS on my computer. Some of my kids know how to use OBS.
All these kids that stream games are like, have a
Yeah,
running
they
start.
know. They've got like a capture card and everything. I don't.
My Blackmagic deck link in the PC, and I'm streaming to Twitch.
Yeah. So these teachers struggled even with something as basic as get out your cell phone, which has pretty good quality nowadays for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Prop it up if you don't have something, put some lights around you, something interesting, talk to the kids.
I keep harping on this, but the better you look on camera, the higher your credibility is on your message. It's just why most educators don't show up for class wearing sweats. They come, they're dressed to have authority, and the worse your video looks, the lower your authority is. And, especially when you're dealing with kids who are YouTube experts,
Yes.
They know how to do lighting, they know how to make their own YouTube channels, they're streaming to Twitch. So it is important in education, in any of these areas we've talked, to make your video look as good as you can, and it doesn't have to be crazy. I don't know, you don't have a shot that you can cut to of these lights, but it's as simple as take a lamp, set it on your table at a 45-degree angle from you to the camera. put some light on your face. Go get a $20 microphone off Amazon, or hopefully the district will provide you one.
Right.
But we're wearing lavalier mics.
Yeah.
Lavaliers. And they're
Yeah.
cheap. And I got my Nelco COVID bandana. But you know, there's little things you can do. Good light, good video, good sound. And you can have that presentation that gives you that authority.
And I think, unfortunately, we have to think, too, if kids are, and maybe even adults, because the adults kind of have this attention span, too, you have to be entertaining to an extent, right? You can't just be sitting there, blah, 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 blah.
They're going to Charlie Brown's teacher.
Yeah, they're going to tune you out. So you have to think of a way to be engaging, and even more engaging, and almost have a persona, right? To build this persona that people are going to want to watch, because you're so far away from them, and they can tune you out like that, and you're not there to go, hey.
It's true.
Right? So
look at
pay
me. Look at me.
attention. I'm right here. You know.
And they have their Minecraft on their phone. And you know, I did a project with Microsoft when I was still at New Tech, and this was probably like 5 or 6 years ago, but it's an interesting, you know, case study, because they were doing webinars. And I use the word computer geek as a term of endearment. And we're on Geek Out SA, so geek is a positive word.
Yes.
Yes.
But it was a hardcore computer geek on camera with a PowerPoint presentation and a laptop. And they were doing 30-minute webinars, okay? And their average view time on these webinars was 2 to 5 minutes. No, you know, you would start watching, and then you start checking email. Next thing you know, you're closing the window because the sound of the webinar is distracting you. And so we started working with Microsoft. It's like, it's got to look like TV. Let's get good lights, good camera, good sound. And in their case, they did it in a virtual set, and they did the double boxes and made it look like TV. And same engineers, same PowerPoints, but the story told in a different way. And they saw their engagement go from 2 to 5 minutes on a 30-minute webinar to 36 minutes on a 30-minute webinar. And this wasn't a class that they're required to take. And that extra 6 minutes was the magical 6 minutes, because that's Q&A at the end. It means they watched the whole webinar. Well, what about this? I'm doing this with SQL databases, whatever. And, you know, or my Exchange server, this, that, or the other. But they were engaging, and it's strictly in the way you tell the story. And like I said when we first started talking about this, right now they're in triage mode. We can't come to the school. We've got to get this information to the kids. However it gets out is acceptable, as long as they're getting the information. But as we get through that ramp-up curve, then people are going to think about, how do I, and you said it, entertain them. How do we keep it interesting? How do we make the kids, how do we project the authority that we would have when standing in front of those students in the classroom, but do it online? And it's not rocket science. It's the presentation.
But then also, it comes back to us adults, and what about faculty meetings, right? They are already so painful. I get to listen to him. I get to hear him, because we're like both working, and I get to hear him on his like conference calls, faculty meetings, things that could have been an email. And I realize that we're used to, well, you have to come to a meeting so that I can prove that you were there, because I can prove that you were listening,
Roll
right?
Call, check,
Right. So I think I would love to see communication get to a better point where we can, you know, here's a Google form or whatever it is. You watch the video. These are, you know, here's the secret word or whatever, you know, here's some of the things that you had to glean from it.
How many times did I say new normal?
Again.
And if you don't get it right, you have to rewatch.
You're calling your other teachers. How many times did you say new normal? Let's take the average and we'll all answer
We'll
the
all
same.
answer. But
So
there's got to be something.
We have Lennon's Kitchen watching us right now. Jaybird videos.
Jaybird.
They're real active there. Check out their YouTube channels, but not right now because we're talking. But one thing I wanted to bring up is how we as Geek Out SA had to change during all of this. We actually had to go through and actually bring in live remote guests, because we couldn't have anybody come in to the house yet. So we started using Skype, and then using NDI. Can you tell us a little more about what all NDI is and
Yeah.
what it can do?
So NDI, how many people, raise your hand and if you know what a video cable is. And I wonder how many people at home actually physically raise their hand. Comment in the chat if you actually were tricked into raising your hand. But, what NewTek did years ago, and Andrew Cross, who is the president of NewTek and the CTO, developed this. In fact, we started doing a derivative of the NDI back in 2005 called IVGA when I was still at NewTek, and we launched TriCaster. And what it was, it allowed you to take your PowerPoint from a laptop through Ethernet in as a live source. Okay? So what we did, NDI has become basically, it's live broadcast quality video, but instead of using an HDMI cable or a SDI cable, it's through Ethernet.
Right.
It's through your network in your house or your office or your studio, and it makes it really easy to just route things. If it's an NDI source on your network, whether it's a camera or a laptop or a tablet or Skype, it can be a source in your video switcher, which you guys use XSplit, but whether it's a TriCaster or OBS or Wirecast or whatever, you can bring in these NDI sources, and it stands for Network Device Interface. And now you're seeing cameras from Sony and Panasonic that have native NDI. So like at Nelco Media, which is my business, and we build out TV studios and all this. In fact, Kurt is a client because we did the city council chambers for the city of Lawrence, Kansas.
Oh, wow.
And I'll tell you about, he has the coolest setup, and I'm going to brag about him in a minute. But, anywhere in my building.
He says it's magic.
Anywhere in my building, I could take an NDI camera, plug it in, and it shows up in my switcher.
Yeah.
I don't have to run, because HDMI, you don't want to run it more than between 50 and 100 feet.
Right.
SDI, serial digital, is 300 feet, but Ethernet can be all over the house, all over the office. And so it makes it so easy to do things in different areas.
Right.
And so my NewTek and Microsoft partnered to add NDI to Skype. So now there's over 300 million users of Skype in the world. Way more than 300 million now. That was an old statistic. Every single one of them has NDI built into it. If you go into your Skype settings now, you can click a button that says Enable NDI. They just announced like a week or two ago that they're adding NDI into Teams. And the reason that's important is businesses or schools, they may use the Office 365 suite, which has Teams built in, and it adheres to their IT policies. And now I can be on that school network and take those NDI sources and bring them into a production. So like you were talking about the faculty meeting, instead of it being a Zoom call with all these faces, and half the time it gets locked on the wrong one, and some guy's sitting there or girl sitting there, and then the school board superintendent or the principal or whoever is like, how do I take over again, and you're fighting it. But instead you can do a one-to-many broadcast, bring in the sources you need, and produce it as a show that actually looks good and has a good flow and engages those teachers.
Well, I think that might be interesting. I'm just thinking of it from an educational perspective. We have students who are special education students, and they require a co-teacher.
Right.
So there's usually a teacher and then a secondary teacher who kind of explains it in a different way, just in case you didn't get it this way.
Right.
And I'm a specialty teacher in that I teach the gifted and talented. So the teacher will teach them something, and then when I'm co-teaching, I'll be like, okay, but yes, this, but in GT, we look at it from multiple perspectives, or this is the ethics of it, or, right, I try to bring in those GT strategies. So that would be something cool that we could both be...
Sidebar.
Yeah.
But that's actually a challenge right now.
Yeah, that would be interesting to be able to do something like that where both teachers could work together to get that broadcast done. Interesting. Okay.
The technology's there, and some people are savvy enough to implement it easily, but everybody's going to have to adapt.
And the compression is smaller. I mean, it compresses it more through NDI.
Well, there's two flavors of NDI. There's full NDI, and then there's a highly compressed version called NDI HX.
Mm-hmm.
And NDI HX is compressed a little more, but if the bandwidth is there, you won't be able to really tell as much.
Right.
But full NDI is less compression, and that's what they use for like 4K and things like that.
Do you have to have an NDI camera ready camera to do this?
No, you don't. There's adapter boxes. Like there's a company called Bird Dog that makes an NDI adapter box. There's an HDMI or SDI. NewTek makes them. Magwell makes them. Their NDI boxes are appearing all over the place. So that way, if you have a camera you love with a great lens on it and you really like it, plug that into the HDMI. But what's cool about NDI is it's bidirectional. And what that means is an SDI or HDMI cable is sending from your Xbox to your TV, right? But NDI could take video back and forth. And it can also take other data. So like with NDI, if you on XSplit or Wirecast, if you had a NDI PTZ camera or a pan tilt zoom camera, I can control that camera via NDI as well. And what's even cooler is because Ethernet, you can get a switch that's PoE plus, so power over Ethernet. Not only can you get video out of the camera via NDI and send the commands to control the camera via NDI, but via Ethernet, you can also power the camera. So you don't have to plug in a power cable. You have one cord Ethernet that runs to the camera. It's powering the camera, it's controlling the camera, and sending the video to your switcher. It really is amazing. It's the future.
Yeah.
Wow.
Until lightning hits something, and then it's not.
Well, if lightning hits anything, you're kind of hosed. No matter what technology you have, you get struck by lightning, it goes down. So, but in this new world, you have to think about bandwidth. You have to.
That's
do
the
bandwidth
biggest
management.
problem, I think, because I could foresee this being. And sorry, I come back to education a lot because it's my jam, but I could foresee this. We're acknowledging more and more students that have problems with anxiety and they need to social distance for their own, health or well-being sometimes. And so, or some of them get really sick. When I was a kid, I had walking pneumonia. I was out of school for 2 weeks. But if I had been able to just go on my laptop or something, which they didn't have back then, thank you for bringing that up.
When I was a kid, we didn't have and we liked it.
And
we had a Tandy.
But could have watched the teacher. You're sick, right? And you can't bring germs to school, but you're not like, I wasn't like on my deathbed. I was watching TV, so I could have watched a lesson, right? So if you could be there watching a lesson and just watching the teacher, it could open lessons up to all kinds of kids that were having any number of problems that given day or week or month or whatever.
And it makes sure they don't get behind.
Or kids, military kids that have to move around so much. Okay, maybe they don't want to move to a new school in March, of their 8th. They stay connected with their friends, with their class. They get to see their classmates and everything, and they just get to keep going until the school year ends. Yeah, I want to do that. Let's do all that. Let's do those things. Please, Phil, make it happen. Go to Northside.
Yes, ma'am. I'm in. I'm in. Hello.
So I know we talked a lot about like software and how communication comes across when you use that software, but there's also hardware involved. So what kind of hardware is out there?
Well, the thing is with hardware is, the stuff that I mostly work with are things like the TriCaster. And for those of you that don't know what the TriCaster is, it's a TV studio in a box. We pretty much invented that category. And now you have derivatives of copycats that have come in and done a very good job, like XSplit, which you guys are using, OBS, which is free. But like there is a dirty trick on NDI of why a TriCaster is better with NDI than anything else, and it's there. If you're using NDI into Wirecast or XSplit, if you have 12 sources hooked up, it's sending the full bandwidth of all 12 sources down your switch at once.
Right.
But if you're using a TriCaster, they have a preview mode that they're only taking the sources that are live at full resolution and everything else is in a thumbnail mode. So it cuts down on the bandwidth on the network drastically. And NewTek doesn't really talk about that much, but that is a really good reason, if somebody's doing a professional show, to move into that technology. But
well, they would know it the best because
they do know it because they made it.
they made
you
it.
know? But yeah, the hardware, but you have, people are using like the ATEM Mini Pros. The ATEM from Blackmagic, they released the ATEM Mini, and it's $300 for a 4-camera switcher that you can hook up to a laptop and do, green screen and all this other stuff, and it's $300, and you have hardware.
Yeah.
Hardware to me allows you to do more with a smaller crew. Y'all are a very small crew. 2 hosts and a technical director, but a lot of times people have to control it themselves. So, like a touch typist, instead of having to look at the mouse and figure out where I'm going to click, I can just hit input 1, input 2, input 3 while I'm talking. And so that's why it's great to have hardware, and the prices are coming way down. And that links in. You have a USB-C out of the ATEM Mini Pro to your laptop, and it shows up as a webcam, so you can do Twitch streams or feed it into a Zoom meeting. And those start at $300. And you plug in your HDMI cameras, and you're off to the races. And you can roll in some videos and roll in graphics and do some other stuff if you want to get complicated, or you could just punch cameras. You don't have to get fancy, but adding those cutaways are pretty handy. It's a lot of classrooms have Elmos. Do y'all have Elmos?
We do. We have an Elmo.
So you could have your Elmo and say, okay, I'm going to put this apple under here, and let's cut this apple. And they're looking at it, and that's a source in your switcher.
Yeah.
But we live in a world where the technology is accessible. If somebody really has a desire to learn it, it's not rocket science anymore. The heavy lifting's been done. Now the most of the workflows I do are the high end, more expensive, broadcast solutions. Panasonic, Sony, Ross, NewTek, that kind of stuff. But there's no barrier to entry anymore. You have a webcam. You can go get a Logitech camera for $70.
Yeah.
You can get XSplit. You can get OBS. And you can start doing it now. There is no excuse not to do it unless you're just scared.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are. Yeah.
Nobody wants to look bad, but in some ways the peer pressure needs to be, and from my opinion, is looking bad means you're not doing it. It's a positive peer pressure that, man, your videos look terrible. You have no authority with this video. Instead of, I don't want to look bad because I don't know the technology, which is really worse in the long run.
Well, and then what about cutting it all together? So that was one of the things that I learned over the course of this. Vincent was like, okay, I'm tired of cutting videos, so this is on you, girlfriend. Here's this little Kind Master thing, and it's free.
Push the bird from the nest.
Yeah.
Fly, bird. Fly, little bird.
He was like, it's free. Go learn it. They have YouTube videos. You're tech savvy. Go figure it out. It's a drag and drop. What do you recommend as far as cutting? Because that, I think, is one of the nice things is if you're not live, like we're live, so if we screw something up, y'all get to see it. But when you're not live, you get to cut them.
R2-D2
You don't touch my cards.
It's live.
He's touching my stuff.
I'm like worse than your student.
Star Wars stuff.
Stop
I'm
touching
worse
my
than a little
things.
kid. It's like, Star Wars.
So once you have done everything on your side with the hardware and everything, and you've gotten all this video in, what do you do as far as to cut it together and to make it an actual show?
What I do is, like, when we go into, like, let's say a school district hired us, our job is to make the workflow as easy as possible. So we configure everything to make it really simple. Like, one of the schools we worked with was Southwest Prep, which is a school here. I think it's a charter school here in San Antonio. And they wanted to do distance learning, but they had a class in Bernie, which is another town for people that are watching from Lawrence, Kansas.
Yeah.
Bernie's about half an hour north of San Antonio, but the teacher needed to teach a class in San Antonio and also at the same time have students in a classroom in Bernie. And so we set him up with a robotic camera and a camera on the other end, and we linked it up via Skype, and we got a TriCaster in there. But the magic was how we built it out so that the teacher doesn't have to become a TriCaster expert. They can see there's a monitor in their classroom. They're watching those kids in that classroom if they raise their hand. Vince, what's your question? And it's like being there. But the teacher really just has to look at their computer sitting on their desk and say, I want to show my PowerPoint. Now I'm back to me. I want to do a wide shot of the classroom, and they're not saying, oh, I need to grab this handle and move this camera around. It's all pre-configured. So our magic that we do is how do you build the workflow and design it from an engineering standpoint so that it's more seamless to the teachers. So that's what Nelco does really.
And that's what y'all do in like a movie production type way as well, or
we
or a
TV
show,
live TV studios. We helped with the NFL draft, so we did robotic cameras. So the hosts were at their house, and it was going to another control room, through the internet, through Skype, and the hosts don't have to think about the camera angle. The guy that's running the system can say, "Oh, that shot they moved, so let's move over to the right." So we build those kind of workflows.
Nice.
But can I do a shameless plug? I know you're
yes, no, shamelessly plug.
One of the things we're trying to do at Nelco is to create more kits. That is and like this is what I call the Nelco Media
I was gonna lead you into that, but you let yourself into it.
No, do it.
This is what we want people to use to make their Skype look better. So there's 3 things in this kit. There is a really nice USB microphone from Audio Technica, and what's cool about it is it has a headphone jack on the mic, because you want to be able to hear it better. So you could have your earpiece in, and you're picking yourself up on this mic, and it's plugged in, and it replaces your junky mic on your laptop. Has a little stand that's in the kit. Then we have this 4K Panasonic USB camera. Okay, this is a PTZ, but it's not a motorized PTZ, so I can have it on a stand that's right above my laptop, and I can adjust the angle a little bit, and it's a 4K PTZ, and it's designed with a wider angle lens so that it doesn't have to be very far away. I can be this far away, and it's a great shot.
Nice.
So that's part of the kit. And then the other part of the kit is this light, which is called a roto light. And then the kit includes all the little stands for everything. But this light is super cool. This is a battery or AC operated light, but I'm going to turn it on and blind everyone. But this is, I want to add more light to my face, and right now it's at 100%. I can dial it down so it's dimmer. I can change the color temperature, because if you have windows and it's out and you see daylight, you want to be daylight balanced, or you want to be tungsten. So you guys are daylight balanced in here. So we'd put it to daylight balanced and it would work. But what's really cool is this light also has some special effects modes. So if you just want to have fun, I can go into special effects modes and I can make lightning. And watch this. If I hit it correctly, let me go to let's go to lightning. Okay, so now I can, it's going to randomly cycle to do a lightning effect. So if I set it outside my window, it's
nice.
Or you're talking about meteorology, and then I'm a geek. Sorry.
No, I love it.
So then there's also things like this is a cool one, fire. So you're sitting by the fire, and I change the color temperature.
Yeah, and then you're like,
so it's just strobing. But this is a really cool light, and it runs off AA batteries, or you can plug it in. But that's some of the things we're doing. We're building these kits so that school districts can say, I need 20 of these kits with cameras, with light and mic. And part of our solution that we're building is the checklist of how to do it. Where's the light? Where how far away is it? How to plug it in. And so it's the information is just as important as the equipment, because we're assuming that the people that are going to get these kits are not tech savvy, and we need to make it so that it's as little pain as possible. And that's why we went with USB camera, USB mic, because it's as simple as go to settings in this. What camera do you want? Webcam or Panasonic blah blah blah? What mic do you want? Laptop or Audio Technica. There's 2 things they have to do, and then it's a good looking video.
Nice.
So, we're even going to the point of building out broadcasting kits as well that are in rolling cases that have the talk shows and the TriCasters.
Oh, very cool.
And the idea is, a city will buy this, and they'll have it so that if it's COVID and they're in a pandemic, the video person can take this kit home, set it up in their house, and then link to all the city council members via Skype and bring them in and make something that looks like TV. But these kits,
nice.
These are higher end cameras. These aren't $70 cameras. I mean, that kit is about $1,800 with the case. But the idea is, if somebody's buying this and you check out the case to them, and then they take it home, and our tech support will help them set it up, and they're off to the races.
There you
Very
go.
cool.
Wow.
That's
very
my
cool.
shameless plug for
No,
that.
good
So
job.
if somebody wanted to get one of those kits, how do they get a hold of you?
Shameless plug
Yeah.
part 2. It's Nelco Media, NELCOMEDIA.net.
Just point down like this.
Oh, point. I guess they're gonna put a link in here for me. Lower thirds. You gotta love graphics. But that's what we do, and we're working with a lot of government agencies that want these kits, but these could be used, and we could scale it down if school districts needed something more affordable.
Yeah.
But this kit will look like TV. It's gonna look amazing.
Very cool.
Very
Well,
nice.
Phil, thanks for coming and hanging out with us. Really appreciate it. Really wanted to find out where communication was going and what's happening right now. And you're the guy to do it. Really appreciate it. But thanks for checking us out. If you haven't subscribed, click on that subscribe button and hit that notification bell when we go live again, and you'll know. But I'm Vince.
I'm Colleen, and that's Phil, and thanks, Stuart, over there.
Geek
Geek
out,
out,
SA.
SA.
See you later.